Global Village with Dill Wickremasinghe.
Irish filmmakers David Merriman and Richie Naughton are currently making a film about LGBT rights in Ireland and Alabama. To tell us more about the project, we are now joined by David Merriman, filmmaker. Welcome to Global Village.
Thanks for having me, Dill.
David, first of all, where did you get the idea to do a documentary that, I suppose, just linked Ireland and Alabama, out of all places?
Well, I spent a lot of time in Alabama. I met my wife in Alabama, and I spent probably half my life, nearly 40 now, actually in Alabama. Went to school for a while there. I was in the entertainment business in America, travelled all over, and I ended up down there. And I really struggled with a lot of the social attitudes that they have in Alabama. And about 2.5 years ago, we moved back to Ireland, me and my wife and my children. And I was just shocked to hear some of the same conservative voices that I've heard, and some of the, what I would think of older world kind of views being expressed here in the media. And so, as an artistic person, you always wonder about, what can you do about this? And so I determined to make a film about it, and not just look at the comparisons, but the sociological underlay and the thread that runs between us as human beings, regardless of the 5,000 miles that separate us. The same things are still found in both these cultures, and I believe that we are much further ahead of them in a lot of ways, but yet we still have that primordial aspect still here.
So it must have been quite a surprise for you, because after all, I think I was surprised as well. 14 years ago when I moved to Ireland, I felt, moving to Europe, Europe is, that way more advanced and progressive when it comes, and more liberal than most countries. And sometimes it can be a bit of a shock, because at least, if you move to Alabama, you kind of know what you're going to get, So,
Sure.
I think you have a choice to move there or not. But you were surprised. And why do you think that is?
I think there is. I think Panty said it best when she said that there is a spectrum of bigotry that runs in human beings, and it's how we as human beings identify things. We have to classify them, and we have to stereotype them. That's what we do. And I think when there has been a negative attitude toward the LGBT community historically, there is still remnants of that left inside of us. Even the most forward-thinking of people, as Panty says, have a homophobic streak in them. And I think if we can imagine as forward-thinking people that we may have that, well, what do the people who are not forward-thinking, the people who are uneducated as well? And that's the people that we would like to try and reach with our film, is people who maybe are low information or receiving wrong information through our media here. And so as a result, we're not only going to be talking to contributors from the LGBT community here and in Alabama, but I'm going to Washington to meet with the American Psychological Association and the American Sociological Association, who wrote the amicus brief in the DOMA case, and really get them to come on film and tell us what is the actual situation for children of same-sex parents, so we can have an end to that discussion, instead of, the disinformation that we receive. Actually have, from the horse's mouth, 170,000 scientists come up with a conclusion. I think we should listen to them.
And tell me, what was the response, I suppose, because you're still in the process of making the documentary.
Sure.
You've spoken to many people that have actually been on the show here.
Yes.
That likes of Max Krzyzanowski has been is part of the documentary, and as you said, speaking to people in Alabama. So what's been the response when you tell people you're doing a documentary about Ireland and Alabama?
Well, funnily enough, one of the first response that I get of members of the gay and lesbian community is, "But you're straight. Why are you making a film?" I was with David Norris last week, and I know David since I'm a teenager because he's a neighbour of my uncle's, and he agreed very graciously to be part of our film, even though his health is not super at the moment. And he said, "David, why are you doing this? I don't understand. What's your reason?" And equality is a human right. And, as a human being, I think we should all be interested in that. And oddly, that's been the first question. And I was just sitting out in your reception, and another chap out there who's married, who's straight, asked me the same question. So, but I've got super support of people. We're going to be filming tonight with Rory O'Neill. He's going to be part of the film. A lot of great voices in our political world, and just members of the LGBT community here. And I think it's fantastic. We are very forward-thinking here, but I think it's also a good thing to recognise we are a far ways from equality in Ireland. Equality is not a destination. Even when we get marriage equality in the spring, which I hope that we do, it's about our social views and how they have been formed, and we still have we still have a great spectrum and ways to go with that. And I would like people to think about that, even forward-thinking people. You know, how do we analyse our gay and lesbian and transgender brothers and sisters? You know, when we speak to them or we talk to them. You know, I hear people say, you know, I have no issue with gay people. I don't have an issue with gay men, but I don't want to think about them having sex. And I say to them, well, do you think about me and my wife having sex? Of course you don't. But this is, you know, this is the thing, is that this is the focus is on the same-sex activity, the intimacy between people. And this is how we classify people. We separate ourselves from them, you know. I never came out to my parents as straight, but yet, you know, we're all supposed to come out to our parents as gay or lesbian or whatever else. And so I think, you know, those are small examples, but there is a huge array of them that we're unaware of, I believe. You know, even if we don't mean to be prejudicial, we have a prejudicial streak, and I think that's something I would like people to think about, at least.
No, because at least if we were to accept that we had prejudices, and yes, we are racist or we are homophobic, there's an element of every human being having some, you know, those tendencies. At least if we accept that, then we become aware of it, and then we can work on it, as opposed to this idea of, no, I'm absolutely open-minded, I've absolutely no issues with anybody, but...
Of course. And even the word homophobic, you know, we can't use the word anymore, you know. Homophobic, I mean, if you say to somebody, you're a homophobe, or you have a homophobic attitude, they say, well, that homophobia is fear. Well, you know, homophobia is antipathy as well. It's an aversion also as well. And, you know, it's not just a fear. It's not just a, you know, oh my gosh, this is horrible, I can't be, you know, we need to identify that, yes, maybe there are things about us that are homophobic. Maybe, you know, if Panty can say there are things about her that are homophobic, then perhaps we could look at that ourselves.
No, big time. Just because our own LGBT community is so diverse, and there's certain things about the community that, let's face it, not everyone is really that comfortable with. And I think Pride is a great example, because some people think it's brilliant, it's a lovely way of you know, celebrating our diversity and our identity, but then some people will say, oh, hang on, it is a family event, and do we really need to see the you know, the oily men in chaps and little briefs, and especially because we are changing as a community. And I think those conversations must have to be had without being judgmental, but just at least coming around the table and saying, look, guys, can we be a bit more considerate and inclusive of each other's needs?
One of our main contributors in Alabama, a guy named Joe Babin, and I was talking to him before, and Joe loves American football, he loves you know, video games, he loves you know, Marvel movies like myself. And
me too.
Me too. And he's told me, though, there's members of his community, gay community, who accuse him of butching up because, you know, he likes these things. And I think that, you know, this again is what we're doing to one another. We're categorizing each other and saying, because you're a gay man, you can't do this or you can't do that. And that's even inside of our community. So this is the spectrum that runs on all human beings. You know, it's bigotry is not it's not a racially defined thing. It's a human thing, I believe.
Because just mentioning the lesbians, they have the same thing. You know, you're like, oh, lesbians should be butch, they should have short hair, and then the lesbians who are maybe, you know, more feminine and wear makeup, then some lesbians will look at them and say, oh, you're not really a lesbian because you don't look like a lesbian. What does a lesbian supposed to look like? You know, I got long hair and I love my suits, and that's what I look like. It's not about you know, fitting into a stereotype. So going back to the documentary from Ireland to Alabama, funding and you know, how is that happening?
Well, we've gotten some private funding, and I've funded the majority of the film here in Ireland. I've had some super support. I've trained one of my cousins to be a cameraman, Pete, which is very gracious of him, and friends and family and other people from the business have been kind enough to donate their time. But we are running a GoFundMe campaign online at the moment, hoping people will help us out as we're going to America. It's very expensive. So people can go to GoFundMe and put in From Ireland to Alabama, or they can go to our Facebook page, which I wish they would, facebook.com/From Ireland to Alabama, and, you know, give us €5, help us out, help us finish this film and get our message across. That would be fantastic.
Brilliant. Well, you know, documentaries are a great way of, you know, really bringing people, you know, together and raising awareness. And I think it's really interesting for the people in Ireland to be able to see what it's like to be an LGBT person in Alabama, and then vice versa. And hopefully, you know, together seeing, look, it's not right here, it's not right there, so we just need to sort it out.
I think also media does a great job of breaking down stereotypes. You know, I am delighted that we have gay and lesbian characters on television now. And the one issue I have with it is a lot of times they're the punchline. They've become, stereotypes in and of themselves. But media can inform and it can help. And to see, our fellow citizens in Ireland and our fellow human beings in Alabama and what they're going through, they're not stereotypes, they're human beings. And their experiences are unique to them. And to maybe not classify them or classify ourselves, just look at the people and be a person yourself, as it were, rather than prejudging, because I think there's a lot of that goes on, as we were just talking about, in the lesbian community, the gay community, the hetero community, we all do it. But I think, I think it's good to question what we think and why we think it. And I hope people will watch the film and do that. And
for me, because you mentioned the fact that you're heterosexual, you're straight, and you care about the issue, for me, that is even more important, because I think if we were to stick up for each other's rights, as opposed to only sticking up for our own rights, there's the real power in that, because that's a selfless act. You don't have to do this. This is not going to impact on me. But you know what? Because you're part of the same human family, because if equality or inequality impacts on you, ultimately it's going to impact on me. So equality for all is just better for all society. It's a human right. I mean, I have 4 daughters. Any one of them one day could come in and say I'm a lesbian or I'm a bisexual. And, honestly, I want them to grow up in a world that tells them there is nothing wrong with them. And there is nothing wrong with them. And there's nothing wrong with me. And that's an important issue for all of us. Privilege a lot of times held by the people who are not being impugned, and they don't worry about other people's privilege, but we all should. That's an important factor in life, is to be concerned about the more vulnerable members of our society, or what are perceived as the more vulnerable members of our society, and make sure that they have the same rights and the same choices that we do ourselves. Well, David Merriman, thank you very much for joining us here on Global Village. And the best of luck with From Ireland to Alabama. And he is hoping that we'll find out more about the project as it progresses, and let us know when it's finally out and ready for us all to enjoy. Brilliant, excellent. Thank you, Del. David Merriman, From Ireland to Alabama. Thank you very much.
Continue the conversation online. Use the hashtag